past event videos. Check out all of this on his website, zenbitslap.com. And to get things underway, I've selected a passage from some AA literature to read. And in this case, it is the big book, or known as the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll hand over to Paul, who'll riff out on it for a while before we open up the room for any questions or comments. And Paul, I'm going to an old favourite at after the ABC on page 60 of the big book. So you got that there? So it goes like this. So it'll go for the next couple of paragraphs. Being convinced we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him, just what do we mean by that, and just what do we do? The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we're almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. Over to you, Paul.
Great. I could read the first part, but the other part was missing. That page is falling out.
Oh, good.
Remember it well. First, and also I wanted to speak, first of all, welcome everyone. Paul, alcoholic. If you're having trouble getting on the thing, hopefully we'll work it out. Yeah. And one thing that we say in the beginning, I want to speak about, which is Paul's take on the steps. Paul's takes on the steps is not really concerning the steps. It's an understanding before the steps, and maybe seeing the steps from that understanding, which is the exact nature of the wrong, is some kind of foreign pathogen or a parasitical movement, some sense of being other than us, because if not, we're handcuffed by the statement, self can't get out of self. Without knowing it, we may be in the act of being identified as that which we like to get out of. Yes. So I feel that is the root of the problem. And it's prior to alcoholism. Alcoholism just amplifies this sense of being the other, this sense of self. Yeah. It amplifies some of the qualities that a life based on self-will will represent or express. Not all of them, and it tends to lean on what people would deem a negative side, like jealousy, sense of entitlement, all this, instead of compassion, love for others. Yeah, so that the understanding of what may be the activity of the disease and doing an inventory from that view brings a new light to all the steps. It's not a changing of the steps. You just see them differently. Instead of calling self's manifestations yours, you see them as selves, yeah, which is a huge difference. And that carries on throughout all the steps, yeah. So, yeah, I believe the principles of AA are incredibly sound. The steps are sound, traditions, concepts, all of it. What I do feel there's a lacking of is an understanding of the exact nature of the wrong, yeah, or a confusion, and that confusion affects everything after it, yeah. So if you don't see the bondage of self, you may be looking from the bondage of self. So yeah, and so I wanted to put that out there. Then yes, this the 3 points that are clear right above where Dave started, which is that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. See, that was much different than the first step, because I felt when I first was introduced to the first step, I thought my drinking and using was causing the unmanageability. I believed the way I acted out when I was on coke would stop if I stopped doing coke. But what happened, I found I had a rude awakening, and that wasn't true. So there was an unmanageability that was amplified by the drinking and using, but was not truly caused by it. It was caused by the reliance on self. So the reliance on self was why my life was unmanageable. And it states here very clearly, it says being convinced, and one of the things is the first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. They don't mention alcohol or drugs there. Yeah, they're not mentioning that because that's a symptom. That's an activity that comes from this prior condition. The first requirement in this of being convinced of the how and why of it is that we are convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Self-will isn't our will. Yeah, and obviously they're making a clarity between God's will and self's will. So will is there. There would be a will, and then there would be something prior to it, which is self. There'd be a will, and there's something prior to that, which is God. There's Billy a will, and there's something prior to that, which is, let's say, Paul and Michael. Yes, but will is there. But what's directing the will is what comes before it. Yeah. And so if you're identified as the problem, self is directing your will. It's looking out for its agenda. Whatever you think is your agenda is subservient to its agenda. Basically, you've been taken over, and that will, let's say, a driving force, where the direction of the driving is being directed by self. Yeah. So it says self-will, any life run on self-will, any life being directed by that self is going to be unsuccessful for us. Be completely convinced of that. Yeah. Drinking, no drinking. Yeah. So any life, it doesn't say the alcoholic life, it says any life run on self-will. So his idea is much not so specified as all this is going to clear up when you stop drinking and using. He's talking about underlying conditions, which is self running our will or directing our will. Now we have an option of trusting the infinite where God will direct our will. Yes? And then you judge the results, basically. AA doesn't need much advertising. It works. Yeah. It works if you work it. So if you follow the suggestions that don't have any specific thing of, this will or that will, there will be a transfer of self will to God's will. Let's call it God. I don't like that, but we're pointing at something. Don't get caught in the color of the pointing, just the something is pointing at. Yeah. So there is a transfer. The will is there. Yes, yes, yes. Will is will. But what before it is what directs the will. It puts it to use. It gives it purpose. Yeah. That's why we have a term called the new employer, because to be employed is to be used. Yeah. So something is going to use us. A lot of us have been used by self. Yeah. This idea of being something that we're not really. And it has gone to an absurd level, and its managing causes life to be unmanageable. And we want to forget that. So we get loaded. We want to fucking have a rush. So we shoot dope, But basically, it's all a drive to get out of that which we're not truly in. But through the identification as self, we're completely saddled with diminished possibilities. When I saw I wasn't that, the possibility of being free from it became available, clear as day. Yeah. All that was needed was I needed to be convinced that I wasn't self. Yes. I don't know what I am, but I know I'm not that mental image that constantly is being talked about all day. I know I'm not that. And I know I'm not the doer of that behavior because I was taken over and used for transportation. And you aren't going to, I don't care if you sit me down for 4 weeks and you try to convince me that I did all that shit under the influence. I'm not going to get it, believe it, because that's not my experience. I do not believe I crawled on all fours looking for lint, thinking it was cocaine on a rug. I don't. I think something drove me to that condition. Yes? Self. So I want to be very clear. We're not adding on to anything of the book. We're trying to bring a clarity, an understanding, so that you can see the solution not from the problem. So you can see the solution by recognizing the problem. Yeah? And the problem is just this, it just said it. The first requirement of the how and why of it is that we be convinced that self will, a life run on self will, can hardly be a success. How can there be confusion about diagnosis? Yeah. It doesn't say our will. Any life run on our will is not going to be successful, does it, or doesn't it? It does not say that. Our would sort of imply Mickey, David, Paul. It says self will, which I do not believe implies Mickey, Dave, and Paul. I don't. Yeah. I see it. It rings a bell of foreignness to me. And I humbly believe that's why the problem doesn't exist for me a day at a time. Truly. Yeah. I don't believe the problem doesn't exist. I believe a problem does not exist as me. It may be existing, but it's not me. Yeah. That's to me, that's incredibly different than what I've heard and what I was hearing. Yeah. So that's what we're here. To me, when I'm here, I have no intent. If there's any intention, it's not to clarify the period from the comma on page 68. I don't care really. I want to get to the exact nature of it. Yeah. And I feel like I was brought to seeing something, and what I saw hasn't been unseen for now 20 something years, or however it's been. And I have the grace and the privilege to be able to share it with people by the people who set up David these Zooms. And so we do. Yeah. But we don't vary from the intention or the point. Yeah. 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 You have to see a difference when it says self will and God's will and our will. Yes. It doesn't say any life run on God's will is hardly going to be a success, or our will. It says self's will. Yeah. Self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. Someone sent me something. I should look it up. How many times the word self is said in the book? Probably more than any other word, at least any other topic. Yeah, it's peppered throughout the whole thing. What the hell is it? Is it ego? Well, if it's ego, what's the feeling of having an ego? And what's the feeling of, I think I lost an ego? What is that sense that's before an ego? Yeah, I see that's the bondage of self there. Yeah, the sense of being the doer no matter what's done through you. Yeah, so you can't give yourself relief because you believe you did all that shit while you were under the influence. Yet if you looked at what you did and compared it to other people, what they did under the influence, it looks quite similar. Yeah. But no, I did it. I did it. I did it. Yeah. To me, that's the bondage of self. Really. Yeah. To be bound to a past based on the idea that you were the doer, no matter what happened, you did it or you had something to do with it. I don't believe that anymore. I don't. Yeah. And I've had a lot of relief from guilt and shame. And the door isn't shut on the past, nor do I regret it. I see value in everything. Every fucking thing that ever happened brought about where I may seem to be today. It had a role. So therefore, how can I say that was a terrible incident when I was pulled over and went to jail if the next day I went to an AA meeting and now I've been sober for 34 years? Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, all right. I'm just I want to put this out because it's so easy just to move on from the exact nature of the wrong and then get into all the specific expressions of the wrong. I rather just see how we're linked or how we're bonded to self. How? Yeah, because obviously to be bonded to something, you must be something else. Yes. If there's bondage of self, there must be something else that plays the other role of what's bonded to self. Isn't that us? Isn't it us that's bonded to self? Does us do it, or does the mental process glue that together? Does the mental process reinforce the us as self? Does it or doesn't it? It sure sounds like it if you listen to the head all day. So, what are we? Great mystery. I don't know, but whatever there is, and then there's a bonding of self. Yeah. So that whatever that is seems to be bound to self. It's not self. Yeah. There would be no bonding if self can't get out of self. That's why, because there's no bonding there. Yeah. So if self was other than self, it could probably get out of it. But because self is self, it can't get out of self. Yeah. Why we can get out of the bondage of self? Because we're not self. We're that which is bound to self. Yeah. So maybe we could be bound to God or bound to higher power or bound to Buddha nature, whatever, but bound to something other than self. And maybe being bound to something other than self wouldn't appear as bondage. Yeah. It would appear as liberation from self. Yeah. It would appear as peace from self. It would appear as hallelujah. Yeah. You're still bonded, let's say, but now you're bonded. Now it's a new employer being all powerful. It's going to take care of us. Yeah. And so now you see something like, something is doing for me what I can't do for myself. And previously something was doing through me that I wouldn't do through myself. Yes? Something used me exact same way as the new employer used me, but how it used me and what it did to the tool and how it left the tool is completely different. Yeah. Who wants to be employed by self? That was what I want to emphasize, because there's tons of people who know the steps perfectly or whatever. They can milk the cow of get the best milk out of it. But I never heard someone share this, and that's why we're here. Maybe they're doing it now. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I should have gone to some other country where they were sharing it. I just didn't hear it over all the years. I heard everyone getting the directions of, you're going to look at your resentments, your fears, your harms to others, when it says very clearly those manifestations are of self. Yeah. I humbly believe that's a mistake. Or at least this idea of looking at self's manifestations should be more included in how we pass on the steps. Yeah. And people I know who I've worked with who have seen it through these lenses seem to have traveled lighter. Yeah. As I have. That's why we're here. That's why we're so passionate after all these years, because this little idea produces a large effect. Huge effect. Yeah. Could you imagine a life where you saw thoughts not as yours? Maybe you would be able to travel lighter through thoughts. Maybe you could find forgiveness if it wasn't always your behavior and you should have known better. Yes? Maybe there'd be forgiveness where you can be moved to do almost anything given the right conditions. Yeah? So there you go. Yeah, it's beautiful reading. If you just go on, he just said it. This is the how and why of it. The first requirement of what? Of to be convinced of is any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. It doesn't state alcohol or drugs or anything in there. It says self-will. Any
Mm.
life. Yeah.
Mm.
Any.
Amazing. Thanks very much, Paul. And it's good to see you again. And I just, it's opportunity now if you want to ask a question or we want to make a point. And I just wanted to say personally, it's good to be here. I haven't heard, I'm back employed, would you believe? But it's certainly, I think one of the privileges of the last 2 years with lockdown has come through, has come, I've had the privilege of doing this with you and listening to you over and over and over again, of saying this thing and the same thing in many different ways and going through the book. And it's really invigorated my sobriety and my understanding of steps, and if you want to say non-duality or whatever you want to, however you want to call it, I don't know. But it's certainly, I can go to meetings and I can talk about the stuff that we speak about, but it's totally over other people's heads. I don't know if anyone else has had that experience, but you might be talking a total foreign language. You might be talking Icelandic for all that matters, because it doesn't really pay attention. But I was thinking the other night I saw a
David, what you are speaks louder than what you say. On some level, it
yeah.
some level it is gone. It may get detoured later. It may be used to point somewhere else, but something triggers. People feel it. I have said stuff at meetings. People love it. And then they say, well, where can I see more of this? I tell them to go to Zen Bitch Slap. I never hear from them again. Yeah? So the package has a lot of importance to what we're going to sign for any delivery. And this is a mental problem because we're conceptualized. Yeah, and like it says, and they knew it then because they said that thing by Herbert Spencer, contempt prior to investigation. There's a whole fucking lot of that in all of our lives. Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to turn your camera off for a bit, mate. It seems to be, I think your audio is going a bit crackly there. I'm just going to try that. So, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Yeah,
So
great.
The tendency of the head is to go myopic. It just is. Yeah. So why did they put that thing in there by Herbert Spencer? Because they saw their own heads doing the same thing. Yeah. Contempt prior to investigation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people don't even open up the package because they think it's foreign to what they're used to getting delivered. So they don't even open it up. So that doesn't matter. The matter is if you're compelled to express far out. That note gets out into the cacophony of sound out there. It does. Yes. You'd be surprised. But of course, little numbers, ding, got it, ding, got it, ding, got it, ding, dot, you know what I mean? On the Zoom. It's nothing to do with that. That's none of our business. Our business is to put something out, and whatever it, I have faith in it, whatever it happens will happen. Yeah. But my jurisdiction is over. I just showed up and it's comes through, and that's that. Yes. Yeah. I'm sure I would have liked to have heard it, when I was out there, or when I got
Me
into it.
too.
I would have. Yeah.
I think you mentioned this once. I think it was a couple of years ago, or a year or so. But I watched a wildlife documentary. I don't know. I think it was on Facebook. It was like something. It was about these wasp larvae that lay there, or wasp that lay their larva inside the head of a cockroach, I think, in a jungle, and the larva actually takes over the body of the cockroach, and it sort of it drives the cockroach around, or this bug, it drives them around, the larva. And I thought that was a great analogy. And I know you've said that before, but that's why I loved what you've said, how you've said it, is that it's almost like we've siloed a lot of that stuff, and that's really good for me, being simple-minded, is that I keep it really simple, and to know that the parasite is in there and is trying to drive me, and it's separate to me, has been a revelation for me. So I'm very grateful for that. That's been one of the big bonuses of the COVID, of lockdown, is being able to get access to this on a regular basis. I'm sure other people agree with me.
And it can help because once it gets established, your seeing gets directed through those glasses, and then what you see is a lot different, and maybe it will make more sense to you than the old glasses. Yeah. So this is an understanding of the exact nature of the wrong. Maybe it helps. Yeah. Yeah. But
Certainly has me, that's for sure.
sadly low on exact on understandings about the exact nature of the wrong. I do.
Mm,
I
mm.
do.
But you mentioned that about the book, and and one of my favorite bits in the book is those three, the ABC before, that's really simple again, and that simplicity of the book, and it's funny how you said that there's people that still, that they'll pound the big book until it's thin, and until it's microscopically thin, and yet they'll ignore the ABC, or they'll ignore like you said, about the exact nature of the wrong. It's funny how we get blinded to it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the
Mm,
point. That's why
mm,
the only way, like, you probably would never listen to this if it was coming from someone not AA. We're using what's in the book. We're not like erasing some shit and putting other shit in there. It's right in the book. I mean, that sentence, being convinced self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. I think that's not, you don't need like a, a postgraduate doctrine to understand that sentence, do you? It's pretty simple sentence. Being convinced means to believe with certainty. Self, I don't know what that is. Yeah, manifested. I know what manifest means. It appears. Yeah, it comes to pass. Yeah, manifests in various ways. So there's a lot of different manifestations. There's not just one. Has defeated. I know defeated. Yeah, that's occurred a lot. Us. So I don't see there's any chasm of misunderstanding between any of those words. It's just simple progression. Yeah. And then based on that, we're going to swivel. We're now going to look at its manifestations. Obviously, where the arrow stops isn't pointing to us, it's pointing to self. Yeah, its means self. All right, so that's what we're supposed to be. That's how we're it's trying to direct our how we're looking. Yeah, to self, not to us. Yeah, it's it just says, oh, self-manifested is what has defeated us. We're now going to look at us as all of us as problems. No, it says it's. We're going to look at its common manifestations, meaning self. Yeah. And then the next paragraph starts with resentment. I can't. Where does it go off the rails there? Where do we lay down imaginary track to arrive at another? I think it's plainly stated the arrival. It says it, the whole thing says it all. Yeah, doesn't it? I don't know.
mm.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't. All I needed was that light on, and it made then the sentence made a completely different sense. My understanding of that sentence seemed to have changed in the first few years. And
Mm,
suddenly something happened. It's never changed since then, ever. Yeah.
mm.
I I see self as other, and I see us. I think I'm not. The video's not here, right? Hold on. Yeah. Oh, you got my video down, right, Dave? To make the
Yeah,
video
just
work.
it's you're a bit crackly.
All right.
It's sort of
You
try that.
must have to start your video. All right, let me try it now. Yeah, can you hear me? You can see me now because I'm.
I can hear you, but we can't see you.
Oh, it's
Oh, there
okay.
you are. Oh
I
my
went
God, we've got you.
through the sentence and I was dot. Yeah. So you got it right. At least as an not believing it or not, you have an understanding that self sort of implies something other than us. Yeah. And this something other than us has defeated us by its manifestations. And we are now going to look at not us, but its manifestations. And then resentment is implying it's a manifestation of self or not us. Yeah. Has my logic gone off the rails so completely that's not where it arrives? Yeah, someone help me then. Is he talking about us all along and everything that ever happened through us was done by us and we're responsible for everything that us has done? Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it that way. So there you go.
Amazing. Mm, yeah, I think again, anyone else want to come in? You can. I just also, when you said that the whole sort of drama and stuff that happened in your life growing up, and that's how it is, how I'm now, because I feel like I've been whittled into wherever I am at the moment. I've been kind of through pain and trauma and drama and all that stuff whittled to where I'm at, and I guess that is that sense of gratitude in a very bizarre way, because I didn't feel like that 3 or 4 years ago. It was very much woe is me.
It may be a painful way to go, but what can a failed system show you? It's failed. And if you're not done in other words, if you don't die, that's a very valuable, reckoning. When you self-reliance has failed us. Yeah, it's like a whole different pivot. Yeah, yeah. It's like,
Yeah,
there's always a lot of changes, but some are really, let's say, volcanic. Yeah. Some changes really, the amount of degrees you're moved into a different direction is noticeable. Yes. Like getting struck sober and shit. And to me, seeing self as other was one of those moments. Yeah. To have a clear feeling that I was not that deeply, ultimately, was a profound moment. Yeah, it's changed the direction of living for a while. So it has nothing to, yeah. So this
yeah.
is,
And certainly you take it easy on yourself a little bit better. That's for sure. Definitely.
we're not trying to add on to the steps. We're trying to bring a vision to it. Yeah, maybe seeing from a clear diagnosis of what's been going on will even make it more amazing, the big book and shit, to me. It really does. Yeah, yeah. So
Definitely. So, any more hands there going to come up, or it's going to be a short one? I see my friend Ted's there. Ted's here. Ted, are you still here? Or has he got off? Where is he? Ted McGowan. Is he gone? He's gone. Does anyone want to say anything, or are we gonna let Mr. Hedderman get off?
Hi, David.
Hey, Stacy.
Hey, Paul. How are you?
good.
So I did some of my own little research on this idea around, where does it become like our resentments? Why do we keep calling them ours? And I found in the big book on page 62 and on page 70, it refers to, we reviewed on page 62 is on our resentments. It clearly states our resentments. And so like you had talked before about like how some of these issues that we're contending with are within the language system. Okay.
Yes.
And then like I wish they would use a different word besides self, but this is what we're dealing with. And then when I looked at what really became apparent to me was when it says like our and then fears. And then our fears, it's used several times on page 63. It says lose our fear of today. On page 68, it says reviewed our fears thoroughly. To page 68, to remove our fear and direct our thinking, and then our fears fall. So it's like, it's to me, it's constantly pointing back that when I'm identified like that, that it's referring to that I'm causing these things.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just it goes like that. It takes complete turns, 180s. Yeah. Yeah. I know. That's why it may not be a loud voice, but it's still in there. Yeah. Where it was very clear to me, being convinced self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. And I think a couple of statements I don't agree with in the book, which is we manufacture our own misery. I don't believe that. I believe something uses us to manufacture misery. And that's a life run on self-will. Yeah. So it's just yeah. He says a lot of stuff, different letters or words, but the position of looking at it changes a lot. But of course, the basic mode is always going to be about us, and it may have had a role because alcoholism is really about a denial of responsibility. Yes, so we would love to say our fear was really based on them. They're causing me to be in fear and shit like that. So when you take responsibility, maybe it would look like, all right, my resentments, finally, I'm taking responsibility for the resentments. But hopefully it doesn't stop there. Hopefully it leads to an accountability where, yeah, the dog I own took a shit on the neighbor's lawn. I'm responsible for that, but I'm not, I'm actually accountable for that. I didn't take the shit on the lawn. It sounds like mincing, but it's very, very important. It is, because if you keep claiming everything moving through you, you're going to be bound by what's moving through you to an idea of self. Yes? Yeah. So we're not, obviously, the book really reinforces it's you and you need to do it. But there are some fucking incredible jewels in that book that override everything else that's said in the book to me, which is page 64 and any life run on self-will and all these statements about self without knowing it or knowing it, they were pointing clearly to what was going on. Yeah. Yet it's sort of like the same thing when people have the experience. They get brought into the gravitational pull of the infinite, but then they get sucked back into the gravitational pull of self. Yes? Yeah, yeah. So when I'm speaking in the gravitational pull of self, I see and speak differently about the same thing I would say different if I was in the pull of the higher power. Yes? Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, it happens all over. I couldn't emphasize if you didn't. But the thing is, I've read all the book. I saw the emphasis in that. Yeah, my, I did it. But I did not see any emphasis of what I felt was presented by the page 64, being convinced self manifest in various ways. I saw almost no emphasis in that. I never heard about it. Yeah. So if anything, we're just trying to call out and maybe point to there's other possibilities in the book. Yeah. Yeah. They're not anti anything. There's just other possibilities. You don't have to see everything through one lens. You can put on another pair of glasses like Chuck C, a new pair of glasses, and then look at the same thing that you look through the other glasses with. Maybe you'll see more looking through the second pair of glasses. So here you go. Yeah. The other one didn't work for me. Yeah. My life, as it says in that thing, that David thing, the person driven by self-will can be virtuous, kind, shit like that. Yeah. Now, I had no idea of that. I thought if I was acting like I was virtuous, but they just blew that out of the water. No, that could be self-will disguised without me knowing it at all. Yeah, that's the whole point. Isn't there a lot of stuff going on without us knowing it? And wouldn't it would behoove us to have clarity about some of them, because some of them are pretty profound. If something's going to glue me to past behaviors as the doer of them, and the only way they shine are as shame and guilt, I'd like to see another way of looking at that, because that's like 35 years ago. You know what I mean? I've been paying rent on this shit for all this time. I'd rather spend that attention and interest on something else that's alive, let's say. Yeah. So I'm right about the book, but I'm dead. I don't, fuck that. That's not attractive to me. Yeah. So hey, read
Wow.
Herbert's. Hey, before contempt prior to investigation, maybe do a little bit of an inventory and look at a resentment as a manifestation of self instead of yours. Just, that's not hard, is it? As a exercise, we're not asking for much. Maybe 4 or 5 resentments or 4 or 5 fears. Do the inventory, but now don't look at it as looking at those manifestations as selves, and self is other. See how it feels. It feels different. Yeah. It's the same information. It just, but what collates it is different. Maybe there'll be a sense of lightness in it. That's attractive. Yeah. Yeah. We're not saying this is the only way. Just look. All right. Today, let's say, I have a fear that the website isn't doing the job that it was set out to do. Yeah, and I'm anxious about that. What's my role in it? Well, I'm self-seeking and frightened. I like it to work, but I'm selfish. I don't want to do anything, and basically because I don't know what to do. Yeah, yeah, and maybe I could be more honest and try to be more attentive when people tell me how to work things. But yeah, yeah. All right, so
Oh yeah.
that way. All right, so I could also, all right, and let's say, oh, that angst, that self-centeredness and self-seeking and frightened isn't mine. Yeah, I'm not self-centered and self-seeking and frightened. There's self-seeking and frightened and self-centeredness. Yeah, it's completely different. So, in other words, when these descriptions of self stop applying to be a description of you, there's freedom from the bondage of self, because the head is constantly describing self and we take it to be us. And that's the active bonding agent. Yeah. Where the loss of us is the bondage of self. So us gets bonded to self, and now there's seemingly only self, and then self wanting to get out of self. Yeah. But there's an us there that's been completely underemphasized. Yeah. How? Because the head is constantly talking about self, and we're identified as it. So we're thinking we're doing everything the thought's saying. So when we do an inventory and we find self-seeking and frightened, we're afraid to look at that because we think it means us, that I'm self-seeking and frightened. How can you do a fearless inventory if you're identified with every piece of the inventory? you're gonna like, oh, I don't want this to go. I don't want, you know what I mean? Like a hoarder. You're not gonna fucking sell anything of the unsaleable shit. Yeah. But a fearless inventory is when you're looking at something that's not you. You can fucking tell the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think that maybe what they're trying to do with us on page 64 in talking about an owner of a shop that doesn't take inventory on his products is that they're trying to set us up to where like those products in that shop aren't me?
I hope so. I mean, that's what, a business inventory would be obviously something other than you. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what they were going through because, just like we're directed, they were directed. That which is directed is really more in a need to know basis, not I understand everything. Yeah. You a lot of times you're sharing and you say something, and then someone comes up to you and says, I was completely moved by what you said, and then explained how they understood it. This is not how you were understanding it at all. So, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's just people make it up what it is. So here you go. But as an anchor of what we're suggesting is you can't seem to get around the sentence on page 64. There's no, yeah. I mean, it's not talking us has defeated us. It's talking self. Maybe they thought it was the ego. And, but even if it's the ego, you can see that as foreign, can't you? Yeah. Yeah. You don't think you're the ego. You think you have an ego. All right. But in fact, the ego seems to have you. So use that if you like. I'm not a believer in that, but it doesn't matter. But it's foreign, isn't it? So if self is ego, it's nature it's foreign to us. Yeah. It's not us. It's an add-on or it's a appendage that's not, it says it's completely necessary, but it may not be as necessary as it says. Yeah. Yeah. So the sense of foreignness is still there. Yeah. I just want something. See, what happened with me, something triggered, and when I saw it as not me, the possibility of being free from it became available. It was like that. I mean, it was like a wham bam, thank you, man. I've never forgotten it. Yeah. I never have because I was looking in one way and then I suddenly saw in another way. Like the contrast was pretty distinct, yeah. And it was described, and then as soon as I saw that sentence in this other way, I felt I could be free from it. Yeah, I mean, really felt it. Talk about hope. I mean, a hope that grew a tree like immediately. So it was like the hope of the seed. I saw the whole oak tree. Hey, I can be free of it. Yeah, far out. I mean, to me, that was yeah, unbelievable, really. I got it, and then it opened me up to a new possibility. And then it informed me why that new possibility wasn't available because I was in the act of self trying to get out of self all fucking day. Since I've been 6 years old or something. So, yeah. Yeah. So, self can't get out of self was explained exquisitely in a second and then felt over time. I could see all the themes and activities of my life could be boiled down to that. Me trying to get out of me as me. Proved totally unsuccessful, other than showing me self can't get out of self, which is valuable. Yeah. I wish I would have learned a little faster, but whatever. I'm happy I've learned now. That knowledge is being applied every moment of every day for quite a while now. Yeah. Great.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Well, listen, if there's nobody else, we can call it a day if you want. Paul, do you want to say your farewells?
Yes, yes. Hey, this was a very nice meeting.
It was. It was.
A lot of juice flowing. So yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to be here. Actually, I've missed it. So
It's
yeah.
always good to see you, David. I know we joke
Yeah, you
around.
too.
That's the that's that's the crippled way an East Coast person shows affection. Yes.
I know, and I like every time you rip the piss out of me, I know that you love me. That's fine. I'm okay with
Yeah, we screw with the people we love. It's a little bit of
that.
a little
I love
funny.
it. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
All right.
All right. All
Good to
right. You want
see
to
you.
say your farewells?
Good to see you guys. Yeah. Michael Stacy, alive and well and popping in Madeira. Thank you, Michael, for the little dialogue. Roman, as always, there he is. We got Mickey, the matriarch of Madeira, overlooking everything. Very nice. Yes. I feel like I'm in good hands. Stefan, on having never left, as always. We got Jack G, an escapee from the rodeo. If you've seen him last time with the hat and the beard. Yeah. David G from he is the originator of these Zooms, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Terry, always a pleasure to see Terry. Terry's in a level on having never left also. Yes, it's very nice. We got Chris, Mammoth Lakes. He's out in the open. There's some sun up there. Little cloudy. Beautiful. David B. We got Zach, Amy from Seattle. Always a pleasure. Nice to see you, Amy. Who else? Let's see. We've got Laurie. I think Laurie B listening from Nevada. We got Ben. We got Senna. We got Zach. Yeah, I think that's it.
Hmm.
Thank you, David. Call up Mike. Have him talk with you, David. Maybe you can
Yeah,
help
that'd be